As kids get older, eventually they're going to need a haircut. And for parents of children with curly hair, that can feel a little intimidating. Sometimes it's because you've seen horror stories online or because you've heard bad experiences from friends or family. And sometimes it's simply because you don't know who to trust with your child's hair. At the end of the day, it's up to each parent to decide when they're ready and what they're comfortable with. In my case, I'm not quite there yet. So for now, I've been cutting my son's hair myself. And today I'm going to share some of the things I've learned along the way, as well as how I currently cut his hair at home. I think one of the reasons haircuts can feel intimidating is because you don't always know how your child's going to react. Once kids move past the infant stage and get well into toddlerhood, they may or may not be comfortable with someone touching their hair, moving it around, spraying it with water, or having their hair fall into their face. And every child is different. Some kids sit perfectly still, others don't want anything to do with it. I also think the experience can feel a little different depending on whether you have a boy or a girl. For girls, a lot of parents are simply looking to maintain the shape, trim the ends, and help prevent knots and breakage. But for boys, there can sometimes be more pressure to decide on an actual haircut. Growing up in a house full of men, I heard plenty of stories about bad haircuts, barbers cutting too much, crooked lineups, or shape-ups that didn't come out right. And even now, I still see parents online sharing similar experiences. Thankfully, we're not quite there yet. And if I'm being honest, I'm still not ready to hand that responsibility over to someone else. So for now, I've been cutting my son's hair myself. But if you're getting ready to take that next step, there are a few things I think parents should keep in mind. One of the biggest mistakes I think parents can make is focusing only on the haircut itself and not enough on the person performing the service. Because when we're talking about children, there's a lot more involved than simply cutting hair. For example, you want someone who takes cleanliness seriously. Their tools should be clean and disinfected properly. Unfortunately, there are infections that can spread through contaminated tools or poor sanitation practices. I've seen stories from parents whose children develop ringworm after haircuts, so cleanliness is something I pay very close attention to. You also want someone who has experience working with children, because giving a haircut to a child is very different from giving one to an adult. Children move, they get distracted, they become nervous. Sometimes they cry, sometimes they decide halfway through that they're completely done. And that takes patience. I also don't think that this is the time to choose someone simply because they're the cheapest option. Everyone has to start somewhere. But when it comes to young children, I personally feel more comfortable with someone who has experience working with kids. Depending on where you live, you may even have barbershops or salons that specialize in children's haircuts. And whether you choose a traditional barber, a salon, or a kid-focused shop, I think it's important to have a conversation first. Ask questions, explain your concerns, show photos, talk about what you want and what you don't want. Because if you're uncertain, it's much harder to help your child feel comfortable. Instead of focusing on your child's experience, you may find yourself worrying about whether the haircut is going right or wrong. One of my favorite ways to research a barber or stylist is through social media. I love seeing before and after photos, videos of their work, and examples of the types of haircuts they do regularly. It gives you an opportunity to become familiar with their work before you ever sit in the chair. And I think that can make the entire experience a lot less stressful for both parents and children. Since I'm not quite ready to take my son to a barber yet, I've been maintaining his hair myself at home. I want to be clear, I'm not a licensed barber or a hairstylist. This is simply what works for our family right now. The haircut technique I'm using today is one I've adapted from several haircut tutorials I've watched over the years. It's also the same technique I use when cutting my own hair with a few adjustments for my son's hair. Since his hair is more wavy and doesn't have a lot of shrinkage, I cut it while it's wet. For this haircut, I'm using hair cutting scissors and a hair cutting comb, which I'll also link below. The scissors are great, but they're very sharp, so please be careful if you decide to purchase them. I'll also link an alternative option for anyone who has concerns. My goal with this haircut is pretty simple. I want to maintain a round shape, keep the hair out of his face, and help reduce tangles as it gets longer. Because his hair grows fairly quickly, I usually do this haircut every 5 to 6 months. So let me show you how I do it.
To make the haircut easier, I started by dividing his hair to 4 sections and leaving the bottom section out first. I had already detangled his hair beforehand, and although it was still damp, I lightly misted each section with water again as I worked. Working in small sections helps him stay in control if he suddenly moves. It also makes it easier to keep the haircut even while reducing the risk of accidentally nicking him with the scissors. This is exactly where I want the length to be. Since toddlers don't usually sit still for very long, I worked in small sections and took my time. This first section becomes my guide for the rest of the haircut. I continue to work vertically in small sections. I divide each section in half and match it to the guide as I work upwards. This gives me more control if he suddenly moves, and helps prevent me from cutting off more hair than intended. For the side sections, I still use the back as my guide, but I comb each section forward at a slight angle before cutting. Over-directing the hair this way helped me create a rounder shape while leaving enough length to blend everything together once I reached the crown. I repeated the same process on the opposite side, using the back as my guide and combing the hair slightly forward to maintain the same rounded shape. Once I reached the crown, I parted the hair down the middle and continued matching it to my guide while combing each section slightly forward. This helped me blend the crown into the rest of the haircut while maintaining the rounded shape. I repeated the same steps on the opposite side, continuing to use my guide while combing each section slightly forward to maintain an even rounded shape.
And this is the finished result. Again, I'm not a barber or a hairstylist. This is simply what works for our family right now. As my son gets older, that may change. But for now, this helps me maintain his hair. Keep it manageable, keep it out of his face, and reduce tangles between haircuts. I'd love to hear from you. Do you take your child to a barber or salon, or do you prefer to cut their hair at home? Let me know in the comments below.